Hello, everybody. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising. For the past several months, we've been tracking the process of the UAP Disclosure Act in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2024. Very pleased to report that yesterday the U.S. Senate passed the NDAA, and today it looks like the House of Representatives will do the same. Which will mean that the next step in codifying this legislation into law will be when President Biden, sometimes next week, signs the bill in the White House. And then we'll have the first legislation that states categorically, officially on the part of the U.S. government, that unidentified anomalous phenomena, both in terms of technology and biological entities, exist, and the information needs to be turned over to the National Archive of the Library of Congress with the intent to disseminate most, if not all, of the information eventually to the American and world public. So this is a historic moment. And so it's my great pleasure today to introduce my good friend and colleague, Daniel Sheehan, who's been involved in the UFO, now called UAP issue, for many, many years. He's been tracking it both as a general counsel to various whistleblowers who have testified in defiance of the intelligence community and the Pentagon, and also John Mack, who was the dean of the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard back in the 1980s, 1990s, who started to do research on the whole phenomenon of abduction and ran into trouble. So he retained Danny as his general counsel. So Danny has had probably as intimate a relationship with the history of UFO disclosure as anyone I personally know, and has been deeply involved in the latest round of legislation. He's the founder and president of the New Paradigm Institute, of which I'm the director of the Washington office. So Danny, welcome to Humanity Rising. And why don't we start with you just summarizing the recent history around the emergence of this bill, and then we can get into an analysis of the bill itself, what it achieves, but also what it does not achieve, and therefore what is the work ahead of us as we move into 2024. But welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, well, actually, 8 minutes ago now, the House of Representatives voted to voted to approve that. So it is passed Congress 8 minutes ago. We're now coming up live with the brand new news that it's passed Congress. The provision that has been inserted into the 3,500 page bill, the National Defense Authorization Act. There are now 24 pages of it that relate to the UFO issue. And the original bill that was passed by the Senate, and we had unanimous support inside the Senate Intelligence Committee, 17-0, with all the Democratic and all the Republican senators approving it, and passed the United States Senate by 48-11. It has now been sent over to the House, and the House took out 40 pages of it, basically, which was a lot of the enforcement language, setting up specific deadlines. But let me tell you, people, again, refresh everybody's recollection as to what that provided. The Senate bill had provided for a mandate from Congress to all 6 of our U.S. defense military services, all 18 of our U.S. intelligence agencies, all 32 of the United States Defense Department agencies, and very importantly, all of the military contractors, private military contractors, mandating that they turn over any and all information that they had pertaining to the UFO phenomenon and to any non-human intelligence that was determined to be responsible for the UFO phenomenon. That bill had specific dates within which they had to comply, and very importantly, had subpoena power that was going to be granted to a 9-person independent board of review that was going to be serving the president, basically, to review all of that information that was intended to be forthcoming pursuant to the mandate. And they had subpoena power if, in fact, they thought that it was not, they were not getting full compliance. They could subpoena information from these government agencies and from these private aerospace corporations. And very importantly, it had an additional provision which authorized the board to exercise the power of the United States government to exercise eminent domain over any technology that had been put into the hands of these private aerospace corporations, that they were engaged in attempting to back engineer this technology to try to replicate the technology of these craft, which have been seen to be going over 20,000 miles an hour inside our atmosphere and turning right angle turns at that speed. And going underwater and traveling at over 100 miles an hour underwater. The Defense Department and intelligence agencies, according to the testimony, sworn testimony of high-level U.S. government officials, have been engaged in trying to back engineer that particular technology. So the Senate bill that was passed, said 64 pages long, was then sent over to the House of Representatives. And even though the overwhelming majority of all of the Republican and Democratic members of the House of Representatives wanted to approve that 64-page bill, the Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Michael Turner, who comes from the 10th Congressional District in Ohio, where Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is located, and the principal office, field office of a private aerospace corporation by the name of Radiance Technologies is located. And that Radiance Technology had a program that it was called Prompt Global Strike. And what they were trying to do is they were trying to back engineer the UFO technology that had been put into the hands of Lockheed Martin. They were trying to negotiate getting one of the craft from Lockheed Martin and then back engineering it in such a way that they could produce a nuclear missile that could be launched from the US and strike China or the Russian territory within 2 minutes. And when the Congress found out about this, they basically were attempting to extract the technology from those companies and put them back into the hands and under the control of the United States Congress. So what happened was that Mike Turner, who was the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, he got reached out to by the aerospace industry and the people at Wright-Patterson in his district, and began to oppose the bill, saying that there should be no eminent domain provision in it. There should be no subpoena power in it. There should be no independent board that had the authority to review this information, and that they would threaten to strike the entire bill. They would kill the bill and not allow it to be put into the National Defense Authorization Act. He then recruited the Republican chairman in the House of Representatives of the House Armed Services Committee, who was Michael Rogers, who comes from the 2nd Congressional District in Alabama, which is the home of the Redstone rocket missile testing facility for the United States Defense Department, where they were attempting to implement the actual technology. And it is the home headquarters office there in that district of Radiance Technologies. And these two men joined together, even though the vast overwhelming majority of both Republicans and Democrats in the House as well wanted to pass the bill that had been sponsored in the Senate by Chuck Schumer, the actual majority leader in the Senate. That these two men joined together and they recruited the newly elected Speaker of the House, Michael Johnson, to join with them as the Speaker of the House and to begin to exercise disciplinary authority over the Republicans in the House of Representatives to get them to vote against the bill. And so that this major confrontation has taken place, and it's resulted in the stripping out of the original Senate bill, 40 pages of the 64 pages. So it is down to a 24-page bill now, and there's been lots of voluminous objections around the country to what the House did, because the Speaker of the House, Michael Johnson, reached out across into the Senate to get Mitch McConnell, who is the minority leader in the Senate, the Republican majority and minority leader, to join with them. And so that what's happened now is the 24-page bill has been inserted into the National Defense Authorization Act. As I mentioned, they just voted now 15 minutes now ago to pass that into law. And so we need to focus on what the positive qualities are of the 24-page bill, while still keeping in mind what the deficiencies are that still need to be remedied. And very importantly, Chuck Schumer, the majority leader in the Senate, and Michael Rounds, who comes from one of the most conservative Republican states in the country, South Dakota, who co-sponsored the Senate bill with him, had a colloquy on the floor of the Senate as it was passing, objecting to the fact that the independent board had been removed from the statute and that there was no enforcement provisions in there, and have vowed, even though the bill is now getting passed in its more limited form, they have vowed to represent the American people along with the Republican and Democratic members of the Senate to reinsert into the bill later into the law the enforcement provisions. This was an extraordinary colloquy that took place on the floor of the Senate when they were passing the 24-page bill, cheering for the positive features of it, but continuing to object to the fact that it didn't have the enforcement provisions. So now the bill has been passed. And so the question is, what's in the bill? What is it that's so positive about the bill? And the answer to that is that this bill, because it Sarah, this bill explicitly demands that the military services and intelligence agency, all of them, and the private contractors, turn over to the National Archives and therefore make available to people in the Senate Intelligence Committee and in the House Intelligence Committee who have the proper clearances, all of the documents and information and materials that they have relating to the UFO phenomenon and any non-human intelligence that is found to be responsible for the UFO phenomenon. Now, there's been debates about this as well. Does this bill officially state that the United States government has such a craft in hand and the biological remains of a non-human intelligence? It doesn't say that specifically, but you can ask yourself logically, why would the Congress of the United States pass a law demanding that all of those U.S. government agencies turn this information over to the Congress if there weren't any such documents and there weren't any such materials? And so that we're one step away still from the Senate bill. The Senate bill actually stated in its findings that the United States Senate had found and determined that there's credible evidence to show that our United States government is in fact in possession of such documentation and proof. And that was taken out of the House bill. They didn't want to actually say it, but the people can see that there would be no intelligent reason. There'd be no intelligent reason for passing such a law if, in fact, the Congress of the United States was not aware of the fact that they had such documents and such materials. So we now live in a country within 15 minutes ago where there is, for the very first time, an official declaration on the part of the United States Congress, and now getting set to be signed by the President of the United States, demanding that our government and its intelligence agencies and Defense Department agencies and military services and all the private aerospace industries turn over to Congress through the National Archives any and all information they have. And we now see that Senator Schumer and Rounds, who were the co-sponsors of the bill in the Senate, have publicly stated that they are going to, in fact, move to get additional enforcement power put into that law, even though they've only passed the first skeleton form of the bill. So that's the situation that we're in right now. And so that what it does is it I think enables us in the New Paradigm Institute that exists in Washington, D.C. There in the national office where you're sitting right now, Jim. That our office of the New Paradigm Institute now is probably the most important citizen group in the country that needs to mobilize our forces, our citizen forces, and start sending communications to all of our congressional representatives and United States senators backing Senator Schumer in Rounds and say, look, we support what you're saying. We demand that you take the steps to put the enforcement mechanisms back into the law and put up this board that is independent of the intelligence agencies and independent of the Defense Department, so that we have an honest and independent agency gathering this information and making sure that they get it all, and to put back into the bill the subpoena power that board has to not only extract the documentation and materials from the agencies, but also to take depositions, sworn depositions, to challenge any withholding of any information. And the great advantage is that there are some 40 whistleblowers who have already been meeting with the Senate Intelligence Committee, telling them what the documentation is and where it is and what it says. And so that the Senate Intelligence Committee is now armed with the actual information. They know what the information is. And so what we need to also do as citizens through the New Paradigm Institute is to ask the Congress of the United States to hold hearings now that they've passed the statute, hold public hearings where the various whistleblowers have the opportunity to come forward and join with Colonel David Grush, who back on July 26th, testified under oath that our United States government, in fact, is in possession of one or more intact, non-human extraterrestrial spacecraft, and has also testified that our government is in possession of actual biological proof of the existence of a non-human intelligence that is directly in charge of the UFO phenomenon. So that what we need to do now is, as the citizens, we need to focus on two things. One is the getting of the enforcement mechanisms put back into the law that is now on the books, and also start the conversation about what the full implications are of what's actually happening here for the first time in history. That the number one powerful nation state in the world is now, for the first time, publicly engaged in the process of gathering together the information, showing that our planet is not only not alone as the only life-generating planet in our galaxy, but that in fact the extraterrestrial intelligence are coming here and actually coming and going from our planet. So that the time has now arrived for our American people and the people of the world to start the all-important dialogue and discussion about what the full implications are of this, the impact that this has on virtually all of the worldviews that our human family has generated down through the millennia. That there's an entire octave of human worldviews that people recognize through their political manifestations of authoritarianism, of being reactionary, conservative, moderate, liberal, progressive, and utopian. That these are the kind of political categories of the different worldviews that we have. But all of them share the common assumption that we are the only sentient, intelligent species in the entire universe. And so that this is going to come as a shock to some people, that it turns out that all of these different science fiction movies and science fiction books that have been written about extraterrestrial life, etc., is it turns out that the core reality is true, and that we are in possession of spacecraft. We are in possession of the bodies of extraterrestrial beings. And very importantly, this now opens on to the further conversation that has not been addressed at all in the law yet, of the tens of thousands of reports of very credible people that they have not only seen these UFO craft on the ground, but they've actually had direct face-to-face contact with members of one or more extraterrestrial civilizations. And what is it they're saying? What kind of communications are taking place? And very importantly, and we'd like to emphasize this, is that we know from some 45 years that I've had working in this particular area, we know that a substantial number of these credible sources, police officers, judges, government officials, high school teachers, librarians, doctors, lawyers, candlestick makers, that what there's a substantial portion of them are saying that what the beings are saying to us is, number one, you've got to get rid of the thermonuclear weapons that you've developed, because you're threatening to destroy the entire human family on the planet. And secondly, you've got to stop polluting your planet by burning oil and gas as your major source of energy. You're polluting your entire environment, and you're going to destroy the climactic system of your planet so that it will lose its capacity to actually gestate life in the galaxy. That there are a comparatively limited number of planets in the galaxy that gestate life. And we're one of them, not the only one, but we're one of them, and that they are concerned. And they've been very, very active ever since the detonation of the first atomic bomb at Yucca Flats, at White Sands back in July of 1947. And we have direct testimony of some of the personnel at Yucca Flats, at Alamogordo, of all the different UFOs that were being sighted, monitoring what it is that we were doing there. And we have Colonel Corso, Philip Corso, who was one of the range officers there, who has provided actually an 8mm little home movie that he put together to leave for his grandchildren, talking about the fact that he had a face-to-face encounter with a UFO flying saucer on the ground there near Alamogordo at the time they were doing the detonation of the Trinity site. And he has testified that he was put into possession later after the Roswell crash in July of 1947, 2 years later, that he was put into possession of some of the technology that was recovered from the debris at Wright Field, which became later Wright-Patterson. That we have a plethora of this type of information that for decades now, for 7 decades, the United States Central Intelligence Agency and military officials have been adamantly denying is true, lying to the American people, and in fact, punishing people who attempted to come forward to tell the American people in the world about this phenomenon, because they wanted to keep it secret so they could use the technology to develop weapons. So that we're in this situation now where we now, for the first time, have an absolutely authoritative government source telling the American people that such documentation is that they believe it exists and that Congress wants to get it, and that they're willing to share at least some significant part of this information with the American people in the world so that we can participate in making decisions about what our human family is going to do now that this is acknowledged. And so that as I say, the 2 things that we need to do is have everybody here, contact our New Paradigm Institute at newparadigminstitute.org, and get the email addresses for your Congress people, and the names of your Congress people for those who don't pay enough attention to it to know who your congressperson is, and the names of your United States senator, which most people do know, but also get their email contact information and contact them and start contacting them right now while they're home for Christmas, and New Year's, when they're actually going to be attending public events. Contact them and tell them that you totally support Senator Schumer and Senator Rounds and the other overwhelming majority of the United States senators and the overwhelming majority of the members of Congress to demand putting back into this statute the enforcement mechanisms that have been removed. And secondly, we need to start gathering. We need to start gathering at our Kiwanis clubs, our YMCAs, our PTA meetings, our Grange halls, our churches and synagogues and temples. We need to start gathering together and undertaking the initial serious conversation about what the full philosophical, theological, geopolitical, economic, social, psychological implications are of this new reality. These are the 2 things that we really need to be doing now, now that we're here in the first hour of this having been passed into law. And it will be signed maybe as early as today by President Biden, and therefore have the imprimatur not only of all of the elected representatives in our Congress, but the President of the United States, so that we'll have both the legislative branch and the executive branch of our country telling you that this process is underway, and that what you want to do is you want to intervene as citizens into this process to make sure that it is thorough and that it's responsible, and that the people who have been concealing this information and lying about the information and punishing people to try to keep them silent about this for decades are no longer in exclusive control of this information. So that's where we are this morning, December 14th of 2023. And I just wanted to bring you the good news this morning.
You, sir, are a generous man. Thank you. I didn't know. That's wonderful that it's now been voted by both houses of the Congress. Danny, let me ask you, now that the government is basically acknowledging the reality, what would you say generally are the facts that we can take as a given? There's evidence around craft, there's evidence around what they call the extraterrestrial biologic entities, there's evidence around undersea phenomena, there's stories of abductions, there's stories of hybrid programs. Based on your 40 plus years in this domain, and I know you've been working on a memo of what are the facts that we can take as a given, and knowing that for nearly 80 years, the government has done everything it can think of to trivialize and marginalize and subvert what people know to be true. What would you say in your mind are basically facts about the UFO phenomenon? What categories would you say we can start taking as givens?
I would say that that what everybody listening here today and watching, what they should do is they should go to Amazon Books and they should order Richard Dolan's 2-volume set of books, research books. He was a PhD historian student at UPenn who did his thesis on this issue and has updated this. It's a 2-volume set called UFOs in the National Security State. And this has assertions of fact in it and the documented proof that he and others have extracted from the government so far through the Freedom of Information Act, the official previously classified documents that he has compiled and put in the 2 volumes. He's in the process right now of working on a second set of 2 volumes, so that very soon, within 2024, he will have released a total of 4 volumes of the documents that we've already come into possession of through the Freedom of Information Act. And you will see that there are literally hundreds of facts that have been acknowledged by internal U.S. government documents that have been now gathered by him. What I would say is that one of the most important pieces of information is that the testimony of Colonel Grush, that David Grush testified, as I mentioned earlier, on July 26th of this year in front of the House of Representatives House Oversight Committee, Subcommittee on National Security, under oath testified that he has seen the documentation and talked with the eyewitnesses who have confirmed that our United States government, kind of the deep intelligence agency people and the undisclosed special access programs inside the Defense Department, are in possession of one or more fully intact operational UFOs that are a non-human extraterrestrial spacecraft. And that's number one. And number two, he has stated that our government, the same entities, are in possession of direct biological evidence showing that there's a non-human, highly technologically developed and highly intelligent but non-human species. And they keep referring to it as non-human intelligence that is responsible for the UFO phenomenon. So those are 2 extraordinarily important facts that have been asserted under oath, which in and of itself, his testimony doesn't prove absolutely it's true, but it does prove that he is under oath and has testified to Congress that he, as the representative of the National Reconnaissance Office in the top secret UFO task force that was inside the Office of Naval Intelligence, He's the highest ranking government official who has testified under oath that these two facts are true, that we have such a spacecraft and we have the biological proof of such a species. Now, but the documentation to support all of that and the eyewitnesses that can prove it in the first person have come to the United States Senate Intelligence Committee. And they have 40 of these people who have provided the information to them. So the third thing that I can say is that I know that those 40 people have in fact come forward and have given the information to the Senate Intelligence Committee that verifies the testimony of Colonel Grush, okay, and that they've provided the documentation to prove what it is that they're saying. So that's the third thing that I can say. What I can say, the fourth thing that I can say is that one of the sources of such technology and spacecraft information and biological evidence, I'm asserting the overwhelming proof for which exists is that one of the very first such craft that they recovered was on July 8th of 1947 at Roswell, New Mexico. And that a craft crashed, maybe two craft may have crashed, and that the debris from this crash was taken by the 509th Bomber Squadron into custody and was delivered to Wright Field, which later became Wright-Patterson Field in the 10th Congressional District of Ohio. And that information, those technologies were obtained. The bodies of extraterrestrial beings were obtained, and that they came into the possession of the United States government as early as July 8th of 1947. A fourth thing that I can say is that we know from the documentation in Richard Dolan's books that the United States Defense Department and after 1947, after December of 1947, the Central Intelligence Agency mounted a covert program of suppressing this information and lying about it to the public consciously, and in fact punishing anybody, not only government officials who had come into possession of this knowledge and had attempted to tell people about it, punishing them under the point of destroying their entire careers, destroying their family life by branding them as mentally ill, getting them put into psychiatric institutions to try to silence them, and according to the testimony of Colonel Grush, may have actually even murdered people to keep them from telling about this. Now, that I don't know the names of those people. I don't have the direct firsthand information yet about that. But that what I'm saying is that I'm confident, based on all of the people that I've spoken with directly, witnesses at Roswell, and Don Schmidt, who's written the major books, and also Stanton Friedman, who has interviewed virtually all the people involved in the Roswell event, that I am convinced as a 50-year practicing trial attorney that this evidence is true, that the events at Roswell did in fact take place, very much as have been publicly asserted by both Don Schmidt and by Stanton Friedman. And so that if one were to look up all of that information about Roswell, one would get an extremely detailed set of information verifying that particular event. I can say that with confidence. I can also testify, pursuant to my own direct knowledge, that the United States military has been engaged in a systematic program of recovering UFO craft, because I've seen the photographs inside the classified portions of Project Blue Book. back in 1977 when I was at the Jesuit headquarters as the General Counsel in their social ministry office. I was also asked to become special counsel to the investigation and research that was asked to be undertaken by President Carter. He asked the Congressional Research Service, Science and Technology Department, to undertake a study to provide a report to him on the potential existence of an extraterrestrial intelligent civilization. And secondly, what its connection might be to at least some of the sightings of UFOs. And that I participated in that. In that context, I was given access to the classified portions of Project Blue Book, and I saw the photographs of actual crash retrieval, UFO craft retrieval. And I'm totally convinced that this was not some super secret program of the U.S. government, because the symbols that were on the craft, one that I saw, were nothing like any language in the human family. And I traced them in detail and brought them to the Jesuit headquarters. And Father William J. Davis, who was my Jesuit superior at the time, when I was a candidate for the Jesuit priesthood, I was at the headquarters staff as general counsel in their social ministry office. And when I gave him this information, he actually reached into the drawer of his desk and pulled out an 8.5 by 11 envelope and handed it to me. And I opened it up, and there was an 8.5 by 11 glossy black and white photograph of a UFO flying saucer. And I said, "Where did you get this?" And he said, "Well, my sister Dodie gave it to me." I said, "Well, where did she get it?" Mike, her husband, who is the air traffic controller in the Seattle airport, gave it to her. And I said, "Well, where did he get it?" And he got it from his best friend, who was a pilot that was flying freight around in the Northwest, and took the photograph right through the window of his airplane. And when he got it developed and saw, how clear the picture was, what it was, he didn't want to get in trouble, which is all part of that suppression program that was going on then. And so he took it and gave it to his best friend, Mike, who was the air traffic controller at the Seattle airport. And Mike didn't want to get in trouble and lose his job by reporting it. So he took it home and gave it to his wife, Dodie. And he said, "Here, Dodie, give this to your brother. He's a priest." So this tells you the kind of state of mind of people
Exactly.
that were being subjected to this kind of intimidation and threats at the time by a covert program that was operational by the Central Intelligence Agency in the U.S. Defense Department. And so, and the degree of proof that actually exists that these flying saucers were real. Okay, so these are just a handful of the things that I'm able to attest to, by my own direct knowledge of having seen the documents that Richard Dolan has gathered together. And Richard is just a preeminent source, credible source for this information. So as I say, rush right out after you get done here and go to Amazon and order the 2-volume set of UFOs in the national security state, and you'll see the documented proof, letters from, for example, General Twining, the commanding general of the United States Air Force, writing a letter to Truman saying, "Look, these UFOs are real. They're metallic objects. They fly in our atmosphere. And all of us who have been investigating this in the government believe that they're extraterrestrial." And this is a letter back in like the 1940s, and so that this super secret program that has been concealed from the American people up until now is of extraordinary importance. And so what I would say in closing on this question of what things can I say, what I can say is that from having been in the Jesuit headquarters and having been given clearance by the provincials, the 10 provincials of the Jesuit order, the largest single order in the Catholic Church, which is the largest single religious denomination in all of Western civilization, that they take this seriously, that they authorized me not only to participate in the study that President Carter had asked to have done, but authorized me to go to the SETI program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, that the government finances at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, and present a closed-door 3-hour seminar to the top 50 scientists in the SETI program on the theological implications of contact with an extraterrestrial civilization, a presentation which they requested. Okay, so that this is extraordinarily important, and so that therefore I think that what we're asking people to do is to go to the newparadigminstitute.org and send a letter to your senators and representatives. You don't have to actually look anything up. All you have to do is we have a link on there that you can click onto, and it will send the communication directly to your senators, and that we have put together that is a sound, credible letter, and that this will go directly to your congressperson and to your senators. And we want to do this over the Christmas and New Year's holiday when they're home. When, you know, it's a little hard to get through to some of them when they're in Washington because they have staffs around them all the time and they're busy voting on things on the floor, but they're home now. Or they will be home as of Friday, tomorrow. You know, you can see this is very timely, our communication with you. They just passed the bill minutes ago. They're getting ready to leave and go home on Friday. Today is Thursday. We want you to be right on this. We want to invite you into the process, the trans-historical process that is taking place right now. And so we want you to, in addition to this, we want you to convene your friends and families, you know, so everywhere that you go during these Christmas and religious holidays and New Year's, you know, talk to your people about this. Talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your business associates. You know, tell them that the United States Congress has done this, in that you have the ability, have them also go on to the newparadigminstitute.org and contact their congressmen and senators. Okay, what? Yeah, just put Sarah's on the background saying, all you have to do is push the button. You know, I don't want you to feel like it's an overwhelming task that we're asking you to do here. Okay, so that these are things that I can personally attest to from my own direct knowledge, from having worked on this starting at the Jesuit headquarters, and having met directly with officials in Rome at the Vatican. You know, that I've met with the head of the archives, the Vatican archives, about this. You know, I've met with the director of the Pontifical Observatory, you know, Father Jose Gabriel Funes. The Catholic Church has issued a major public statement now stating that the time has now arrived for us to engage in a conversation among ourselves to discuss the profound theological and philosophical implications of the discovery of life elsewhere in the universe. And when I met directly with Father Funes, who had issued that public statement by the Vatican, you know, he said, look, Dan, you know, when we're talking about life elsewhere in the universe, we're not talking about just discovering some single-celled life form underneath some frozen sea on some distant moon around some star system in another galaxy. We're talking about another highly intelligent, highly technologically developed, but categorically non-human species right here in our Milky Way galaxy. And so this is the profound reality that we're bringing to you this morning, and the ratification of this reality by a direct act of Congress and a presidential signing that's going to take place, you know, possibly before the end of this day. So the time is ripe when you can step forward and talk with your friends, talk with your neighbors, talk with all your business associates, you know, in every organization you're a member of, and tell them that the time has come for us to start having this conversation. And you can actually convene the conversation and get them to contact the newparadigminstitute.org and take part in putting the support behind all of your congressmen and senators to get them to hold public hearings on this and to reinsert back into the law the power to subpoena this information and to extract the technology from the aerospace industries who are in the process of trying to make a weapon out of this. You know, the program's code name is Prompt Global Strike. They're attempting to use this technology that they're garnering from the UFOs into making a nuclear missile that can strike China and Russia inside of 2 minutes, you know, which will totally destabilize the entire geopolitical structures that have been put together to prevent nuclear war. So that, okay, and that it passed me a note here. And if you will contact us at the newparadigminstitute.org, we will keep you updated. You know, what are you saying, Sarah? You don't. Okay.
Sarah, show yourself.
No, she's all right.
Is the executive director of the Romero Institute that houses the New Paradigm.
She's just kibitzing here in the background.
She's a relentless social activist.
Absolutely. Okay, so look, so you're on the inside here. You're on the inside of this. So look, get busy, please. This is extraordinarily exciting, extraordinarily entertaining. You know, it's also extremely important that we do this, because we, as the citizenry of the only 5% of the human family here in the United States, are uniquely situated where we can have a direct effect still in the democratic processes that we still have available to us to make this happen in a truly effective way. So that this is an extraordinary opportunity. You are alive now at probably one of the most important transitional periods of the entire history of our human family right now. This is going to set up the structures and principles and policies governing our entire relationship with an entire extraterrestrial civilization for the next 10,000 years. So we can't allow the people who've been lying and deceiving and punishing people to try to keep this secret and use this technology simply to make weapons, you know, to be in charge of the relationship that we're going to have with this extraterrestrial civilization. You know, so you want to get your churches and synagogues and temples involved in this conversation. You want to get everybody that you can involved in this conversation so that the Congress of the United States can step up, you know, and muscle up and assert its constitutional, not only authority, but responsibility to gain control over this technology and gain control over the relationship that we are going to have with the extraterrestrial civilization. Okay, so that's, and very importantly, I'll say this: you should actually attempt to start becoming in direct communication with the extraterrestrial people. You know, you don't even have to depend upon our Congress or our president or our military people to have a relationship with them, because there are tens of thousands of people who, if in fact they have the courage when they encounter such a craft, or the people that are the beings that are piloting the craft, try to work on calming yourself down and getting past the kind of initial kind of cellular terror that you have, and communicate with them. Yeah, I see it live. Okay, Sarah is telling again, we need you to help take action right here. So please, do contact us at the newparadigminstitute.org.
Well, on that note, to your point, Danny, in addition to the letters that you all need to write everyone, and you can do it very simply on the newparadigminstitute.org site, what Danny's talking about in terms of communication with the ETs is something to take very seriously. And starting in the new year, New Paradigm Institute, in partnership with Ubiquity University, we're going to be launching a joint training program to familiarize you with the facts, the history, the data, the law, the politics, so that the most closely held secret, probably in history, will come to light with what we know to be true. And I would say Danny's hard at work on a memo of the 100 facts that we can assert that we know to be true. And then on the ubiquity side, through our School of Science and Consciousness, which is based on the Princeton Engineering Anomalous Research Lab at Princeton University, we're going to be building a series of courses on the science of consciousness that will include how do you attune yourself through your intuitive and extrasensory faculties to be able to communicate with extraterrestrial beings. Because we need to know the facts. And we also need to upgrade and refine our consciousness so that we are moving into what Danny calls the 8th octave, the 8th chakra, because it's at that level, chakra above the head, that we can communicate the most easily and fearlessly with the galactic beings who are now acquainting themselves with our planet. So the New Paradigm Institute is really at the forefront of not only these calls to action that influence political developments, but also bringing the real facts. Richard Dolan is one of our faculty, and he's going to be offering courses along with Danny as we begin the new year. So there's a lot that we can do because Danny's statement that we are at this extraordinary transitional moment is actually true. And we're here and alive. And the fact that you're listening to Humanity Rising today means that you're in the information loop that is probably the most important information circulating our social media and planetary communication systems now. So I want to just underscore the importance of what Danny is saying. So Danny, just give us a closing word if you would like, and then we'll bring the session to a close.
Well, great. Okay, so that in case I hadn't said it before, you ought to go to newparadigminstitute.org and punch the button there and send the communication to your congressmen and senators, while they're home now, so that when they come back at the second week of January, they'll say, we've gotten overwhelming demands from the American people to hold hearings. Let's schedule the hearings and bring forward some more of this information so that more and more people can become involved in this process. It's impossible for me to overemphasize or to repeat too many times how important this is, because based on our experience in Washington, D.C., not only with 20 years there with the Jesuit headquarters and the Christic Institute, but now at our new office that Jim is the head of there, right on Capitol Hill, we're situated in a way to bring your voice into concrete, practical application, sitting down in meetings with the staff of the Senate Intelligence Committee, with the House of Representatives, meeting with the senators and congresspeople to get your voice heard. Okay, so please help us on this, help ourselves, help our entire human family come to grips with this reality. And I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Danny.
You should be announcing the proper URL for the New Paradigm Institute.
It's newparadigminstitute.org.
No, it's not.
What do you mean it's not?
It's not. It's.
You mean there's some HTTP thing that I don't know
Yes,
about?
I put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Stan.
Newparadigmproject.org.
Well, they'll both go to it. You can get to it through both means, as it turns out. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Terrific.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you again, and we'll keep you updated.
All right. Bye, Danny. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to a close for today. You're welcome to the after session chat. You'll see the link in the chat box, and then we'll see you here again tomorrow for our final session of 2023. Bye. Thanks, Danny.
Thank you.